meeting now adjourn. Jack Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The reason I feel so strongly about this issue is because of one particular campaigner in my constituency, Miliana. Her commitment to raising awareness and campaigning on a range of issues for people with Down syndrome is inspiring, and she is a leading light for people with this condition everywhere. The main thing I have learned from my discussions with Millie since becoming her Member of Parliament is that when making policy that affects people with Down syndrome, the best thing government can do is listen to those who actually live with it, as well as the families and groups like the National Down Syndrome Policy Group. That's why I put in for this debate today, to urge the Minister and her department to listen to groups like the Down Syndrome APPG and the National Down Syndrome Policy Group and make publishing the Down Syndrome Act guidance, which this Parliament has compelled the state to do, a government priority. This guidance is essential for making sure those with Down syndrome are treated with the respect and dignity they deserve across a range of public bodies, from the NHS, the school system and other local authority services like housing. If done well, it could set the gold standard for publishing other guidance for those with unique conditions in the future. Importantly, the guidance must be specific to the unique needs of those with Down syndrome. People with Down syndrome may sometimes have learning disabilities, but Down syndrome is not a learning disability. And Madam Deputy Speaker, in my view, the civil servants are seeking an easy life here by mopping this up with everything else, but that is not what Parliament has told them to do. The Secretary of State for Health quite rightly called out NHS England as a public body which serve the institution rather than patients and the instructions of this House. But frankly, on this matter, the Minister needs to look at the Department for Health itself. In its call for evidence, it also mooted that the guidance could be extended to cover those with broader learning disabilities. This was never the purpose of the Act and risks watering down the legislation so far as to make it meaningless, particularly when the call for evidence also made it clear that the needs for those with Down syndrome are distinct. This would undermine the Act's whole reason for being. So would the Minister commit to separating learning disabilities from the guidance completely and instead add it as a supplementary document? This would be a way of pleasing all interested parties without watering down the guidance. Currently, those with Down syndrome only have 25% inclusion in mainstream secondary schools, 94% are unemployed, and sadly their life expectancy is just 2/3 of the general population. But if we provide authorities with this specific guidance, I really believe we can move the dial on this and they can play a full role in society and afforded the opportunities they deserve. Specific guidance has the power to improve health outcomes by directing NHS professionals, and it will improve school outcomes as it will stop those with Down syndrome from automatically being pushed towards specialist schools when they may benefit from being in the mainstream. As part of this, I hope in her reply the Minister will be able to confirm that those professionals delivering services to people with Down syndrome will have to undertake Down syndrome specific training and that this will be included in the forthcoming guidance. The publication date for the draft guidance has faced multiple delays. The most recent extension to publish by Easter has been postponed yet again, with the new target set for the summer. So Liam Fox's Act got onto the statute books as far back now as 2022, but still families are left waiting. I say again, Parliament has instructed this to happen. The relevant officials should get on with it. Unfortunately, today is just the latest in a long list of debates, questions and letters from the APPG and the NDSPG, which have time and again been brushed aside and ignored. Following the passing of this Act, each Integrated Care Board, ICB, in England is required to have a board-level executive lead for Down syndrome, who is accountable for ensuring the ICB meets its duties and supports people with Down syndrome effectively, including implementing the Down Syndrome Act. But as the Right Honourable Member for Beverley and Holderness pointed out last week in his Westminster Hall debate, there are only currently 3 listed leads for the 42 ICBs in England. Progress has been far too slow in all of these areas. This, frankly, is an affront to the democratic process and reflects badly on this country. Whilst I recognise the difficulties in transitioning from one government to the next, I feel strongly that this needs to be at the top of the list of ministers' priorities. It is a binding statute and really not a party political matter. Even when submitting my application for this debate to the Table Office, Madam Deputy Speaker, my original wording was flagged because these commitments were officially made under the previous government. I am sure this was some kind of administrative confusion, but will the Minister commit to the official record that bringing this forward, this guidance, is a policy of this new government also? When Sir Liam's Act became law, it was a landmark piece of legislation. It gave so much hope to families across the country and sent the message that their campaigning and hard work had been rewarded. But, as is so often the case, MPs now face an ongoing battle with the grinding Whitehall machine. As well as specific guidance being necessary, this Act also creates accountability in public institutions. Now, I'm afraid her officials are again dragging their feet in their own self-interest. They don't want to, and never have wanted to, set the precedent that the public could find someone accountable and responsible for their care. God forbid anybody in the British state should be held accountable. But this Parliament has legislated, it has given instructions, and I want my constituents with Down syndrome to know who is responsible for their care. In getting on with it and capturing the unique needs of people in the specific guidance properly, the government needs to engage with the right people. However, of the key stakeholder groups tasked with developing this guidance, only 3 of the 11 organisations involved are specifically focused on Down syndrome and experts in the condition. Furthermore, the civil service has admitted in their own correspondence that they are unsure of the specific needs of those with Down syndrome. This is understandable, but why not listen to those who do understand, those who are part of the community in the Down syndrome APG? Why not listen to people like Millie Anna? For 6 months now, a meeting is something both the APPG and the NDSPG have been pushing for, and each time, I'm afraid to say, they have been rebuffed with a generic response. I hope that my raising of this issue today, following on from the Right Honourable Member for Beverley and Holderness's debate last week, will be the wake-up call the government needs to take this issue seriously. Sir Liam has also contacted the Chair of the Health and Social Care Select Committee to request an inquiry into this ongoing issue and to explore the reasons for delays in the publication of the guidance. This is something I wholeheartedly support. From my discussions with the APPG, they found that the Minister's response to last week's Westminster Hall debate left them with many unanswered questions. I hope that bringing this topic back to Parliament's attention today has given the Minister a chance to develop their response. It is also, I'm afraid to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, notable that the Minister responsible for this area of policy has been absent both from this debate and from last week, and I would be grateful if the Minister here today would pass on the asks of this debate. I now think that given the delay and the treatment of the Down syndrome community, which has been far from ideal, a meeting even with the Secretary of State is required to reassure those with Down syndrome that the government has not forgotten them. Will the Minister commit today to arranging a meeting of this kind in the very near future? So we need to get this guidance published as a priority, but only if it reflects the true intentions of the original bill, specific to Down syndrome and with proper accountability. I thank the Minister for making the time today and look forward to her response on all these issues, but specifically arranging a meeting, separating learning disabilities from Down syndrome in the guidance, the current lack of ICB leads, and a timeline for the publication of the guidance associated with the Act. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Minister, Ashley.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Right Honourable Gentleman for Windsor for tabling this debate on such an important topic. I'm also grateful to him for his work with the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Down syndrome, because people with Down syndrome should have the same opportunities to participate fully in society as everyone else, but we know this does not always happen. There is a pressing need to raise awareness of the needs of people with Down syndrome and how they can be met. And while every person with Down syndrome is a unique individual, they often face common health risks. For example, we know that almost half of children with Down syndrome are born with a heart condition. We also know people with Down syndrome may need additional support with their speech, hearing or vision. And as the average life expectancy for a person with Down syndrome continues to rise and increase, I am very pleased to see this means more people require additional support in later life. This may be additional support with new age-related health needs, as well as an increased demand for social care services. This government is committed to ensuring that all people with Down syndrome receive the care and support they need to lead the lives they want to in their communities. And we are taking action to achieve this through the implementation of the Down Syndrome Act. The Act lays the foundations to ensure every person with Down syndrome can live full and fulfilling lives through access to the health and care services they need, receiving the right education, securing appropriate living arrangements that work for them, and being supported into employment. We recognise that there is still much to be done to achieve this, but I can assure you and the House that the Government is working on the implementation of the Act as a priority. The Down Syndrome Act requires the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care to give guidance to relevant authorities in health, social care, including local authorities, education and housing services on what they should be doing to meet the needs of people with Down syndrome. Earlier this month, Minister Kinnock wrote to sector partners and the APPG on Down syndrome with an update on the development of this guidance, including the Government's plan to put the guidance out for consultation by the summer. And this followed a round table on the 26th of November, which Minister Kinnock convened.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Twice.
I'm so sorry.
which the Minister convened to discuss with partners how we can improve life outcomes for people with Down syndrome and the opportunities that the guidance presents in support of this. We appreciate that many of the issues that have been raised are born out of a desire to ensure the guidance is as effective as possible and published as soon as possible. We know just how important this guidance is. I can assure you that a huge amount of work has been and continues to be carried out to develop the guidance. And we, like others, want to make sure the guidance is fit for purpose and impactful. It has been vitally important that people with lived experience and the organisations who work to support them are involved at every stage of the work to develop the guidance. A range of sector engagement has taken place. This includes a national call for evidence, partner working groups and a review of evidence to gain a better understanding of the specific needs of people with Down syndrome. Throughout this process, there have been differences in opinion on the scope of the guidance and how it should be drafted. Officials have worked hard to build consensus on these issues, but as I'm sure members can appreciate, it is not always possible to resolve differing opinions quickly, especially on a topic as important as this. While this means that the development of the guidance has taken longer than we all had hoped, it is only right that these issues are given the due consideration they deserved. The Minister responsible set out his position on the issues at hand in his recent letter to sector partners. Our position remains that the guidance will be Down syndrome specific in accordance with the Government's statutory duty under the Act, and it is merely our intention to include references to where the guidance could have wider benefit. This is in line with the commitment made during the bill's passage through Parliament. This is not about moving the focus away from Down syndrome. The guidance is about meeting the needs of people with Down syndrome. It's about taking the opportunity through the guidance to help as many people as possible. And officials will continue to work with partners to ensure the guidance has the maximum benefit for all communities involved. I can also confirm to the member that I've secured today a commitment that the Minister will be working with sector partners to ensure that people with Down syndrome have direct access and are supported to taking part in that consultation. I'd like to thank the individuals and organisations across the country who've worked tirelessly to help us develop the guidance. Their contributions have been invaluable throughout, and we appreciate your continued patience while we work to finalise the guidance for consultation. And we'd also welcome your support to ensure that the communities you represent are aware of the consultation and can share their views. We're grateful to members of the APPG on Down syndrome for their engagement and can assure them that their comments on the guidance have been considered throughout the development process. The Minister in charge wrote to the APPG on the 18th of March. Officials will share a second draft of the guidance with sector partners for feedback in the coming weeks. And I can assure the member bringing this debate that I will pass on his comments to the Minister responsible as requested. In terms of specific training, under existing legislation, CQC registered providers must ensure that staff receive appropriate professional development which is necessary for them to carry out their duties, and must receive specific training on learning disability and autism appropriate to their role. We expect that providers should be considering whether specific training on Down syndrome is required for their staff, and officials will work with stakeholders to signpost this effectively in the guidance that we are developing under the Down Syndrome Act. And I thank again the Right Honourable Gentleman for bringing forward this important debate.